Okay, guys. So, do you remember where we are in the last class? So we started with forecasting, and we understand the concepts about forecasting, and then we started working on the case study where where we are trying to forecast the number of passengers are traveling from a particular country. Right? In this case, we have the data from 1948 January 1st to 1960 December 31st. That is nothing but almost 12 years data. We have it. So now we want to forecast for the next 12 months or next 24 months. It depends on the your target. How many passengers are going to travel from a particular company, a particular country in the next 24 months or maybe next 12 months. Right? Is that clear? I mean, in the case study perspective, I think in the last session we also seen that what are the different packages which we use. I told you stats models is the main package which we'll use for time series analysis. Under the TSA is the module which we are going to use, and the rest of the things like normal matplotlib or pandas, numpy, seaborn. I think these are all are anywhere required for a data understanding and data manipulation perspective. I think these are the some of things which we already discussed. And you remember how to get the data into the Python directly while I'm importing the data into in the form of time series data, right? I think these are all things which we discussed. And in case if you want to cross check, for example, if I have the data, I think I already discussed about how to get a particular amount of data by specifying the date, what month or what date you want to get it. Or in case if you want to see the specific information in the form of range, that is, I think the slicing and dicing part we already done it. I think few examples I shown here. A particular year, a particular month, we can refer all of these things as required, right? And then we also discussed about rolling mean, rolling things. So there, they initially it was a rolling mean or rolling median or something. After that, what they changed is they changed that there is a function which is a generic function they picked up, which is called rolling. And for example, a rolling is a function, and you can specify how many months you want to take a rolling. Is it a 3 month? Is it a 6 months? You remember the moving average perspective which I was referring? That's the place. The mean tells me that what you are taking the rolling mean of, that is nothing but moving average. And if you're taking the sum, it's a rolling sum. That is nothing but instead of average, moving sum. So that is the understanding this part. Suppose if I want to take a 6 months moving average. So you remember in the last session I was showing that, okay, this is the data, this is my passengers. 6 months moving average, how to calculate? Last 6 months data, right? And similarly, if I want to take a 12 months moving average, how will you take it? Last 12 months moving average. So that is how we calculate. I think the last class I was mentioning that rolling mean is a function, but that is available in the version 2 of Python. In the version 3 of Python, we don't have a rolling mean or something. There we have a function which is a more generic function called rolling. There you can specify how many periods you want to take it for an average, and you want to take a mean or you want to take a sum, depends on what you need. You can specify that. Is that clear? Exactly. That's what the moving average yesterday I was explaining in the class, right? It's exactly for that purpose only we are talking about. So 6 months moving average is nothing but this is my data, and I'm taking the rolling time period is 6 months, and here I'm taking the average. Clear? Any questions on this? So that's the reason, if since you have this one, so you can see that the 6 months moving average, this is a 12 months moving average. The first few values are NaNs because you don't have the data for that. So what is the main purpose of moving average? What is the main purpose of, one is to understand the trend. So I think that is the one of the key reason which we are trying to look at. So the trend perspective, and of course, if you look at the plot, this is my plot looks like. What is this plot? This is my actual data. And suppose if I want to add, the data plot is nothing but what? Whatever the time series data you have it. I think in this case, what we are doing is the data is this one. We calculated simple moving average 6 months, moving average 12 months, and number of passengers. If you plot it in the same time series plot, you will get all the plots. How will you get the plots? You can see here. So you can see that the blue one is my original data, and what is that? It's orange color, which is a 6 months moving average. If you look at my 12 months moving average, you can see that this is more like a trend line, correct? So this itself tells me that is it a trending positively or trending negatively, what kind of trend in the data you have it over the time. So that's how the moving average can help you. Okay, so of course, in case if you want to plot it, 4-month moving average, 6-month moving average, 8-month moving average, 12-month moving average, more like subplots. Remember yesterday I was showing that how to get the subplots. For example, I'm first defining the subplot. It's a 2x2 subplot. What does it mean? 2 rows and 2 columns. And here the width of plot is 14 and the height of the plot is 8. So this is the kind of a settings I'm creating. Now, what is my first plot I want to do? My first plot, I want to 0, 0 axis means what? My first plot. It's because it's always index it starts with, because what I'm trying to show is my total space into, you divided 4 plots. Okay, this is, we call it as a 0, 0 axis. This is a 0. So it is a 1, 0 because row is this one, and a 0, 1 and 1, 1, right? So in this plot, what I want to do is I want to take a plot between an original series and 4-month moving average. In this plot, I want to take a original series and 6 months moving average. In this plot, I want to take original series and 8-month moving average. And in this plot, I want to take a original series and 12-month moving average. So which one is more better in terms of looking for the trend perspective? So that is what exactly I'm trying to do. Okay, this is the thing which I'm talking about, a plot between my original series and 4-month moving average. And this is the plot between original series and 6 months moving average. So that is what exactly I'm trying to look at. Okay, this is not number of tractors. This is a title. Okay, let me show you this. You can see this is my plots looks like this. So you understand how we got the plots. It's a simple subplots is the option you have in the matplotlib, and using that features, and we are creating a nice plots, one with comparing the 4-month moving average. Suppose if you look at this one, this is a actual series and 4-month moving average, actual series and 6 months moving average, actual series and 8-month moving average. This is actual series and 12-month moving average. If you look at this, do you see that the 12-month moving average is more trendy? More, it will show you the approximate trend, how the data looks like. Why? Because the data is in a monthly basis. So if the data is in a quarterly basis, probably 4-month moving or a 4 quarters moving average will give a better, right? If the data in a weeks, a 52 weeks, or maybe a 12 weeks can give you the better, right? So that is something, because you are trying to take care of the seasonality aspect. That is the reason you will get the better moving average when you are trying to use the 12 months moving average. So this is just for understanding. There is no analysis in this case. The analysis is what you are trying to look at is the data have a positive trend or a negative trend? Is it coming properly or not? That is what we are going to look at. Or which moving average I can use it to look for my trend. That is the only information you can see out of this. Does that make sense? The smoothing will be better, but if you take 15 months, then you may get something like this only. So it is, yeah, the reason I'm saying that is generally the data is in a monthly basis, and 12 months is you are taking care of the small fluctuations within the period. So that's the reason you will see exact trend. Are you able to follow me? Okay, so that is the one indication you will get it. And if you remember yesterday, I was explaining that the average spot, one is average is normal averages and moving averages, and what is the other one? Weighted moving average. You remember? So moving average, we used function called rolling function. Window equal to, for example, 12. That means 12-month moving average and dot a mean. This is the function which we used. Even stats model, there is a function also you have it. The function itself is which you can get it. Of course, I was showing that. Okay, so I will show that. But in case if you want to calculate exponential smoothing means exponential weighted moving average. Sorry, this is a moving average I'm talking, not smoothing. Moving average. You remember there are two things which I was explaining yesterday: weighted moving average and normal average. So if I want to take a weighted moving average, this is what weighted moving average. There is a function we have called weighted moving average, and in this case, the weighted moving average for a last 12 months I'm taking, and of course I'm taking as a mean. Now in this case, by default, the weights will be calculated on the internally, but otherwise, what is the process of identifying the weights? Yesterday I was explaining that. How did I explain the moving average versus weighted moving average? When you say weighted moving average, how the weights will be calculated? Whichever weights gives you minimum error, the error means minimum MAP, and that weights will be finalized. So if you look at this function, okay, so probably I will see this one, but this is the way we can generally use weighted moving average. Suppose if you look at weighted moving average, how the the normal series versus weighted moving average series, how it looks like. Okay, so generally we don't use weighted moving average a lot because we have a better techniques to use. Generally we use a simple moving average for looking for the trend. But if the data is very small in terms of the size, then probably we may require to use a moving average or weighted moving average. But generally we don't use weighted moving average as a moving average as a technique to solve the problem, a technique for a forecasting. Okay, these will be used mostly on looking for the trend. Correct? Okay, then you remember yesterday I was explaining that the decomposition of a series. I think I already explained and I shown you the plots, how it looks like, etc. I think these things we already discussed about that. You know, how to get the trend, how to get the seasonal component, etc. So what I have done is I explicitly picked up what is the actual, what is the trend, what is the seasonal, what is residuals. So these are my actual component, trend component, residual component, etc. If you sum it up, all of these things, or if you multiply all of these things, this is a multiplicative decomposition. And if you want to sum it up, you can also do the summation. That is another aspect. So when we are splitting the data, so you can specify, is it do you want a multiplicative seasonality or additional additive seasonality or something. So when I specify model equal to multiplicative, this is what the multiplicative seasonality. But some reason you want to use additive seasonality. How will you do that? Sorry. Of course, this is the additive seasonality. So there is no difference between additive versus multiplicative in terms of the plots, etc. You remember the decomposition part I was talking about. My YT is, you remember we discussed two types of decomposition. Where did I mention that? Yeah, no, not this one. Yeah. So if I split the data in this form, this is what additive decomposition. If I split the data in this form, this is called multiplicative decomposition, right? So I was saying that whichever form you want, you can do. So end of the day, if you get a trend component, seasonal component, irregular component, and if I multiply all of them together, then if I get my YT, that is what multiplicative decomposition, right? So here you don't need to manually. What you can do, you can directly use that seasonal decompose function, and there you can specify you want additive decomposition or a multiplicative decomposition. In this case, you cannot do anything. This is whether data have a seasonality or not, whether the data have a trend or not. If both of them are existed, and how much is contribution coming from the trend and seasonality, and that is the components which are explaining individually. So this is what I was saying, that this is my actual. Suppose 148 is there. Out of that, the trend, because of the trend, you are getting around 126, and of course 1.22 times in this particular month. Average is 1, and 1.2 times you will have a higher sales here because of the seasonality. And of course, some of the part which you are unable to explain, that is what residual component or irregular component. If it is a multiplicator. Make sense or not? So maybe if you want, this is a additive. Sorry, this is multiplicative. Let me take the additive part also. So now you can see that the additive part is this much, and of course this is my total trend. For trend there is no change, only seasonal component and cyclical component only will change. Sorry, residuals can be minus or plus, because the seasonal part, that particular period of time you is supposed to have this much, but you did not achieve that much, because this seasonal component is something not for a month as a individual month, right? It is basically in a year, which particular month, what is the approximate component which will be adjusted. Suppose ideally on an average I should get a sales in the January, I supposed to get is 100, but you got 130. Because of the season, that particular month, you always see higher sale in the past. And that is what I'm observing, that irrespective of anything, in this particular January month, I'm seeing some higher sales, which is approximately 30%. Does it make sense? Not in percentage, I'm just giving you an example. This is absolute values only in this case. If it is a negative in that particular month, it should be lower. I mean, you got higher side, it's supposed to be in a lower side. Because of the seasonality, you got a higher. Okay. If I adjust seasonal component, that means you are, if I add actual plus seasonal, that means that you are adjusting that component. Right? If summation of all these three, you will get my higher value. Does that make sense? So that particular month, you are getting a higher sales. How much higher sales you are getting? Roughly 63. Is it clear? So this is what exactly, I think till this place, I just explained what we have done yesterday. I did not do anything new today. You remember or not? All of these things we discussed yesterday. Okay, so after that, I think we also started looking at the stationarity part. How did you check the stationarity yesterday? AD, augmented Dickey Puller test, I used it. You remember there is a function called AD Puller, and using that function, what did we do? So for example, you know, there is a function called AD Puller, and what did we do? Okay, so TS is the my time series, and the time series is the plot. And suppose if I use AD Fuller TS, what you are getting? Sorry. Yeah, what you are getting? You are getting, this is my what? P value. Is it P value is higher or lower or something? This is very high, right? It's a 0.99, it's close to 1. Then can you reject your null hypothesis? We cannot reject null hypothesis. To reject null hypothesis, my P value should be lower than 0.05. So that is what exactly we're trying to look at here. Is it clear? So in this case, what is your conclusion? Series is not stationary. Series is not stationary. So again, you remember the series is stationary or not, how can we check it? Yesterday, there are 3 methods I was showing that, not 3 methods, 2 methods I was showing that. What is the first method? In fact, 3 methods. One is by looking at the graph. And the second thing is, for every 1 month or 2 months, maybe every 3 months, you can calculate the variance and the mean. And is the mean and constant, is the mean and variance is same or not? That is another check you can do. And the third thing is AD Fuller. So what I have done is I created a small function which can give you all these 3 outputs. Which can give you all these 3 outputs. So let me show you how can we do that. See, this is what I'm saying, that the stationarity, okay, is the new function name. If given time series, what I'm doing, I'm taking the rolling mean and rolling standard deviation. So rolling mean and rolling standard deviation is constant, then it should be constant mean, constant variance. So that is what first thing I'm checking. This is my first thing is it constant mean and constant variance? That is the first thing. And second thing is I'm creating a plot, my original series and my rolling mean and rolling standard deviation, all 3, you know, in one single thing. So that itself gives me that is my series is having a trend or seasonality. That is one thing. And is the mean is constant or not? Is the variance is constant or not? So all these 3 things I'm plotting in a single plot so that I can easily identify where series is stationary or not by looking at the plot, by comparing the means and variance over the time. And the other one I'm also doing is the test perform. What is the test perform? The test is basically, you know, AD Puller test. This is the test. In this case, you are getting a 4 values. One is a test statistics, p-value, number of lags used, number of observations used. Those are the four this information. I mean, these are the four first four information is this one. I'm picking up that information, and that information basically I'm comparing with the, okay, this is the value. And in this case, what I'm trying to do, I'm picking up my df test 4. So df test 4 is nothing but the value of one second. Okay, the key and value, I'm taking that. So in this case, the critical value, what is the critical value? Okay, let me run this one. And if you look at this one, what is this one? Tells me that this is my original series. And do you see that this is my rolling mean? Rolling mean means it's a mean over the 6 months or 12 months, whatever it is. Is it increasing or decreasing? So is it constant mean? Can I say that? No, right? And what about the, is it having a constant variance? No, because there are some kind of a fluctuations. So both of them suggesting that the series is not stationary. And now let's look at the Dickey-Puller test. What is the Dickey-Puller test? So you can see that the p-value, because I just add the labels to that. So because earlier it was not having, I add the labels. What is the p-value is giving me? In this case, the p-value is giving me, if the p-value is less than 0.05, what can you say that? It is a, series is, you can reject null hypothesis, that you can say series is stationary. Otherwise, you cannot say that series is stationary. So if you are not familiar with this one, you can do that. Otherwise, what I can do is I can just add these 2 pointers. Let me show you that. So to existing function itself, what I'm doing is, okay, if my result is not result, in this case, df test, what is the first one? The first one is 1, right? If it is less than 0.05, strong evidence against null hypothesis, the null hypothesis, reject the null hypothesis, and data is stationary. If the this one is not null hypothesis, okay, let me show you this one. What happened? Okay, so what is this showing that? Weak evidence and time series has unit root, indicating that the series is not stationary. So to simplify this one, to simplify this one, so in this case, weak evidence against null hypothesis, indicating it is a non-stationary. Or maybe you can say a time series is non-stationary, and here time series is stationary. Okay, so what it is giving me, my function is giving me, what it's giving me, all these 3 measures, all these 3 ways to identify whether my series is stationary or not. Do you agree with me? Is this helpful? Correct or not? And I think all of these things I already mentioned that. Okay, so this is the function is giving me whether series is stationary or not stationary. So now tell me, if the series is not stationary, then what we need to do? If the series is not stationary, what will you do? convert series into non-stationary, right? How will you convert? Yesterday I was explaining some methods. One method is detrending, deseasonalization, or applying log transformation, or differencing the series. Correct? So these are all the different methods I told you. You may leverage combination of these methods to convert a non-stationary series into stationary series. You remember or not? Okay, so you remember yesterday how to remove the trend. Did you guys remember that? How to remove the trend? You remember what is the trend component in our case? How will you identify whether the data have a trend or not? Moving average. Yesterday I was referring that the moving average can be one of the trend component, right? So if I want to remove the trend, what will you do? First calculate the moving average and subtract it. If it is an additive part. Then what are the left out? What is the left out? Seasonal component and this one. So that is what we call it as a detrending. You remember what I mean to say that detrending, and detrending means remove the trend from the data. So how will you remove the trend from the data? First calculate the trend component. How will you calculate the trend component? Using a moving average 12 in this case. Am I correct or not? So that is what exactly I'm saying. First thing is what I'm doing is, for example, if I look at my plot, this is my data, and first the variance is not constant. Applying this log transformation will help you to come up with the constant variance. So that is what the first thing I'm doing. I'm creating a new variable or a new series called time series log, which is by applying the log on the time series. And now if you look at the time series, now you can see that here the variance is low and the towards end its variance is high. But when you apply the log transformation, you can see the variance is more or less similar. So that is the advantage with the applying a log transformation, especially when the data doesn't have a constant variance kind of a thing. And log can be one of the best way to convert a constant variance into a constant variance kind of a thing. So that is what first thing I have done it. The next thing is, I told you, once I have, in case you want to check quickly whether the series is stationary or not, how will you check it? I think we already calculated the stationary function. So now you can see that still the data has trend. So obviously, you cannot say that this series is stationary. And how did we check it? So you can see the p-value, and of course my final conclusion also you got it. Okay, so I think to finalize this one, I can also just add conclusion. What is your conclusion in this case? The conclusion is series is not stationary. Okay, now how to calculate the trend? I think I already told you, moving average with the 12 months moving average I'm picking up, and if I look at that one, this is my trend looks like. Now I'm removing the trend from the data. So how can we remove the trend from the data? This is my actual series and this is my moving average. Then if I subtract it, that is going to be my new series, which is deseasonalized data, right? So sorry, detrending you have done it. So the removing the trend from the data, what is that called? Detrending, right? So how did you detrend it? Actual series, which is log series, minus the moving average one. If you take these two, actual minus trend component, and whatever left over, that is your what? That is your with the trend, you removed it, And what is left out? Seasonal component and residual component. Right? So now if you check this one, so if you look at this one, and now if you see that still the data have, if you look at the rolling mean, rolling standard deviation, still the data is not stationary. Seriously, sorry. Now if you look at the p-value, the p-value looks like stationary. Is it correct or not? So the what is the ADF test tells me that the p-value is less than 0.05 or not. So now if you look at the mean and constant variance, so now you can see that, of course, my original series is this much. And if you, of course, there is a slight variation in the data. One second. So you can see this plot, and is it having a constant mean and constant variance? And variance is almost more or less plus or minus, this value is only it is fluctuating, right? Right? So by looking at the graph, what can we say that? It's more or less constant mean and constant variance. And what is your ADF test is giving me a final conclusion? ADF test conclusion is the series is stationary. How did you get it? The p-value is less than 0.05. So in this case, of course, my original series is this one. And of course, there is a slight fluctuations. This is, I think, what I think probably I did mistake here is we should not take, the moving average or a moving variance, because we taken the moving average and moving variance. So you should not take that. So you should take a fixed time. Okay, for example, 1951, you take it. 1960, you can take it. 1961, you take it. 1962, you take it. So if you take that particular year period of time, if you see the constant mean and constant variance, and that is what you should look at. So this is just to look at the trend, and this purpose you can get it, but the moving average will not be a best way to look at. So that's the reason you can look at the actual graph. The actual graph is what? This one. And if you look at the actual graph, is this value is always fluctuating between this and this, so the variance is constant more or less, and the mean is also almost constant. Correct? So that's how, anyway, the conclusion which you can do based on the ADF test. Anyway, the ADF test is helping you to do that. So now in this case, what did we do? We remove the trend part, and we also remove the, we made it as a constant variance by applying the log transformation. This is one of the approach. I'm going to talk about. That's what I mentioned, right? This is the method one. The method two is, I told you, differencing the series. How will you difference in the series? You will do that. How to do the difference in the series? Suppose this is my plot, and to difference the series, yesterday I remember to shift. Shift is a function will help you to create a lag, and taking the actual minus lag of series, and that will give me the difference of the series. So if you apply this one, and of course if you do the first thing and look at the, so now if you look at the test stationarity, and you can see that the series is still not stationary because it's a greater than 0.07. Then what did I do? I taking the two difference and applying the stationarity, and now you can see that if the series is stationary or not. You can see the p-value is almost close to 0. So then your conclusion is what? Time series is stationary. So what is the second method we followed? The first method we followed is apply the log transformation and remove the trend component. Then that is method one. In the second method, what we see in that, apply the log transformation and difference the series. This is another method. Is it clear or not? So eliminating trend and seasonality, one is a difference in the series and one is the decomposition. So both of them option methods, but I shown you how to do the differencing. So indirectly what I'm saying is convert a non-stationary series into stationary series. Convert a non-stationary series into stationary series. What did we do? Log transformation and then detrending. How did we do the detrending? Actual, minus moving average, right? That is a trend component. And then that is the method one we followed. And the second method is applied the log and then difference the series. Right? Difference the series means what? Actual minus lag of actual. I think you will be able to convert it by applying these methods. That's the reason we given all multiple methods. When you say the differencing, you should not just look at the single difference. You need to take a double difference or triple difference, etc. In some reason you are not able to do, that means that you will not able to apply the ARIMA model. Is that clear? So I told you for a ARIMA model or some of the models, you have a prerequisite is a series should be stationary. If the data is not stationary, some reason you are unable to do that. That means that the models like ARIMA can't apply. So that's the place you need to have a different techniques like arch and gotch, etc. There are some different techniques can be applied. Is it clear? Right now, I'm not getting into that. The unit root is something, when I'm testing out the concept, there is this ADF test, we call it as a unit root test. Okay, so that is also basically to mathematically derive that one. So we use that concept. But in this case, what I'm trying to say is the ADF test, a simple test to help you to identify whether series is stationary or not. ADF test. Yes, in terms of the modeling perspective, yes, your 70 to 80% of problems can be handled with ARIMA. But as I said that there are certain problems which you can't handle with ARIMA. And that's the place other techniques are available. You can do either of them because at the end of the day, all of them are independent each other. The components are independent each other. So if you want to remove the trend first, you can do that. If you want to remove the seasonality first, you can remove that. So whichever you are feeling comfortable, you can do that. If you want to decompose the series. Cyclicity is ideally, that's also you need to take care. But if the data is very small, you will not able to really capture the cyclicity. Only the cyclicity you will be able to capture if you have at least 15 years, 20 years of data, then you can able to capture because you can see the trend over the years. If you have the data in a 10 months or 24 months, etc., you're not able to really see the cyclicity part. If you want to capture the cyclicity part, first you need to aggregate the data at a yearly wise and you see which cycles the values are repeating. Is it every 3 years you are seeing the values are repeating, or every 4 years the values are repeating? That is something which you need to do. No, that is not the one. I'm saying that removing the trend and seasonality is method one. The method two is difference the series. So we use very commonly is the difference in the series. We use very commonly use the differentiation series because that is the one of the parameter in ARIMA model. You remember, the D value. What is the D value? Number of times to difference the series. To get that, you can check, okay, do the first time in differencing and check the series is stationary or not. If it is still not, do the second difference and check the stationarity or not. Until you reach the stationarity, do the differencing part and check the stationarity. For example, you got D equal to 3, you got the series is stationary, then the D value is 3. Still do that, because here I did not do that removing the trend and seasonal. The differencing itself will take care of that, trend removal and seasonality removal, right? So very common method is this method, where you are taking care of both trend and seasonality, both of them. I told you first, in the first very beginning, the assumption I told you, the data it should be in a same time format. If the data is not in the same time format, you need to make sure that how to get the data into same format. For example, if the data everything is in monthly, but one time period you have a quarterly. So either you need to convert that quarterly data into a monthly data based on the other observations, how they look and feel. Otherwise, you do the aggregation at a quarterly wise so that every data will be a quarterly data. I did not follow you. If the period is missing, that is the place you require to use the previous values or previous patterns, identify and fill that value. That is what generally we do, that moving with the help of moving average, the forward filling or backward filling. That is something which we do that. Does that make sense? It should be same period. That is the one of the first assumption I was talking about. That is the first important characteristic I was referring in the class. Very first. You remember or not? I think this is the first key thing I was explaining in the yesterday's session. Yeah, the data should be indexed by time and the time period should be the same. That means same intervals. No missing values, and the assumption is the future trend will be similar to a past trend. So these are the three important characteristics of time series which I mentioned yesterday. Perfect. So are you clear till now how to convert a non-stationary series into stationary series? Any questions on this? Okay, perfect. So once we have a non-stationary series into stationary series, that means that then you need to perform a modeling. So I think this is the place, you can explode this. Okay, so the ETS models for the time being, you can keep it as optional. Because we don't need to use that. Okay, so then if you remember the ARIMA models which I was referring, what is the ARIMA modeling, guys? AR, MA, I. So if the series is stationary, the D value, you remember ARIMA is depending on three parameters: AR, I, and MA. So this is autoregressive, integrated, moving average. And ARIMA is depends on three parameters. So of course, first thing is you need to do identification. What is an identification? So this is the place PDQ. So what is the P? The order of AR. This is the order of MA. This is order of differencing. Correct? So that means that identification of this PDQ. And second thing is estimation. And the third thing is forecasting. So identification, how did we do that? Box-Jenkins methodology, you remember? Box-Jenkins methodology. And the second thing is what? Estimation process. And of course, build the model. So this is one thing. The other method is what we told you, minimizing AIC value for a different combinations of PDQ. So this is the second method which I was explaining yesterday. So I think Box-Jenkins methodology, what did we do by using a ACF and PSEF plots? Correct or not? You remember yesterday I was explaining that what is ACF, what is PSEF, how to identify P value and Q value for based on the ACF and PSEF. Of course, these will give you the rough values, and then we will take the minimizing AIC value for a different combination of PDQ. So to to create a ACF and PSEF, you should have a stationary series. So that means that you need to calculate the ACF and PSEF, which series is stationary, and for that series you need to calculate the ACF and PSEF. So in this case, in our case, what is my time series, which is a a stationary series? Log of difference 2, because you remember you applied the log and you calculated the difference of 2 difference, and that series is you made it as a stationary series. So that is what the first thing which you need to do that. So for this, what we have is there in the time series analysis itself, you have a ACF and PSEF functions. We have it. We can directly use that ACF and PSEF. So how can we do that? So now let's look at this. So what is this ACF? You remember yesterday I was explaining that lag 0 will be 1. Lag 1 with lag 1 is, and correlation between lag 1 and the actual series, that is what this value. And this is the lag 2 and actual series. This is the lag 3 and actual series. Of course, the values you got it like this. I calculate till 24 lags. Till 24 lags. But if you want to plot it them, so what you need to do, first calculate the ACF and PSEF and just see the plots. This is my plots looks like. What is this plots? This is ACF plot. Of course, you also have another plot. So I will show you that there is another way of plotting this one. Of course, the same thing I was creating a boundary for plus or minus 1.96 standard deviation. And similarly, PSEF also, you can plot it. But the same thing, the method 2, you can also do the plotting is using, there is a plot available under the stats model, under the graphs, plot ACF and plot PSEF. This is also another option we have. So either yesterday I was showing this one, that's similar to this one. So what is this tells me that ACF, this is my order 0. Order 0 means lag 0. And this is my lag 1. Lag 1 means what? The correlation between my actual series and the lag 1 series is approximately 0.2. And the lag 2 minus 0.1 or something. Lag 3 is minus 0.14 or something. Correct or not? And like this, and you got still this place, and after that you got positive value, and again you got negative value, again you got positive value, etc. And this is PSEF plot. Now by looking at this plot, of course, I was explaining 2 ways. One is with the help of these what is that, Seaborn and those models, you have it, and from there you can pick up ACF and PSEF plots. This is the method one of the method. The other method is by looking at the plots available in the stats models. So in the stats tools, you have a ACF and PSEF. So directly I can use that methods. So either you can use one of the method, and both the methods are telling me same thing. But yes, this is the more look and feel perspective. This is much better. Okay, if I take this one, you remember yesterday I was explaining that. What did I explain that yesterday? Yes, the P and Q value. How will you get it? The P and Q value. Okay, so one key thing you can see here is this pattern is coming similar here and here. That means every 12 months the pattern is repeating. And similarly, every 12 months, the PSEF, of course, PSEF you can't really see that, but the ACF you can see that the pattern is repeating. If the pattern is repeating, what can you say that? It's a seasonal, right? So that is what it tells me that. Okay, that is the first thing. That means that it's a not simple ARIMA. You need to use a seasonal ARIMA. Okay, that is the first indication. The second important thing, if you understand this one, you can see some peaks. That is indicating me what? That's indicating me some peaks are there and all of them are close to zero, then it's a moving average. And if it is a exponentially decreasing, then it is a exponentially decreasing, and after that it's becoming zero, then it is a AR model. And alternatively, positive and negative, if you get it, then it's a AR model. Otherwise, it's a mixed model. So that is the kind of a discussion we have done yesterday. So is it comes under a mixed model or it's a mixed model with a seasonal, right? So if it is a mixed model, after which lag, your ACF is crossed. After first lag, this is my first lag, right? After first lag, it's becoming close to zero. I mean, negative value is coming. That means cross zero. So that means that what is this value tells me? It's a Q value. The Q is, by looking at the ACF, you will decide. What is the approximate Q value? 1, right? And what about approximate P value? Here also you got after first lag only, you are getting it's crossing. So that means that this tells me that what? P equal to 1. And this tells me that Q equal to 1. And you already know that the series is seasonal. And you already know that the D equal to 2. So that is the kind of conclusion you can achieve out of this one. So that means that by looking at ACF and PACF of, in this case, what we have taken, log TS and difference 2, right? This is my series, which is a stationary series. For this stationary series, you calculate the ACF and PACF. And ACF gives me approximately the P equal to 1. Of course, this is a Q equal to 1. And this is a P equal to 1. This is the indication you got it from the ACF and PACF plots. And if I take my original series is what? Log TS. If I look at the log TS, what is my P value, D value, Q value? P equal to 1, Q equal to 1, D equal to 2. Because if I take this series, the D equal to 0. If I take this series, my D equal to 2, because after 2 times only I need to difference the series. I mean, that is how you will get the stationary series. So now you understand what is the PDQ value identification. So my original series is TS, but TS is not having a constant variance. We applied the log TS, and then we converted this this series into stationary series, log TS diff 2. This is my stationary. This is my original series, and original with constant variance, and this is stationary series. And using this series, I calculate ACF and PACF and identify Q equal to 1 and P equal to 1. And if I take my original series is this one, And for this series, if I use ARIMA, what is my PDQ values? ARIMA is log TS is my series. What is my P value, Q value, D value? My PDQ will be 1 to 1. Okay, if I apply ARIMA on log TS and DF2, what is my PDQ values? 1, 0, 1. So this is how the ARIMA model you will use it. Does that make sense or not? So that is how we are going to, because log is my series is because you want to convert it stationary. And if I use this one, my D value is 2. If I use this one, my D value is 0. Series is already stationary. In this case, the series is not stationary. So you need to provide a D value so that it will difference the series, and that series will be used for modeling. So obviously, instead of using this one, you can use this one because you know after 2 differences, the series is stationary. Both you can use, but implementation perspective, this will be tough, right? Because for this, you need to go back and cross, again, you need to recalculate actual series. In this case, it's already giving the output as in terms of log TS itself. So implementation perspective, this one easy at the time of forecasting.
So the PDQ values, the P and Q values, to the graph we have seen. Is that in a mathematical way there?
No, there is no mathematical way. That's what I said, that the mathematical way is by looking at the whichever combination of PDQ will give you a minimum AIC value. So of course, as I said, that this 1 and 1 is approximate values. These are not a best values. Of course, it can be an approximate value. So in this case, if I want to do some kind of a quick cross check, what I can do is P equal to 0, 1, 2, Q equal to 0, 1, 2, D is anyway 2. So take all the combinations. That means 3 into 3, 9 combinations you will get it. For that 9 combinations, 9 models you will get it. Look at the AIC value of each model and compare all these 9 models. Whichever gives you a minimum value, that can be chosen. And I told you, if the series is a non-seasonal stationary series, and this is the approach. If the series is seasonal, then I told you yesterday, instead of using one small PDQ, then you have SARIMA, which is a seasonal ARIMA model. Then you have a log TS and a small PDQ, one to one, and a capital PDQ. You need to specify this also, something like that. I don't know what is the values of that. That's also you need to do. So for that, what you need to do, again, you need to aggregate the data yearly wise and see the trend and sees the if you look at the different series, you will identify the D value and P value and Q value. You look at the ACF and PACF calculations. D value you can't do that from the plots. You need to identify the difference, 1, difference 2. Then only you need to make sure that the series is stationary.
Removing or differencing, and then again one more model for with seasonal, and then we compare it. Put it together.
See, you can do all possible combinations. What I'm saying is, since by looking at the ACF itself, ACF of log of TS difference 2 itself is a seasonal, so I'm sure that this is a seasonal ARIMA. Okay, if you want to build a seasonal ARIMA model, you need to supply a PDQ values for that.
So the capital PDQ again you have to.
Yes, what you need to do is you need to aggregate the data at a yearly wise and look. You will get the series. and calculate the ACF and BSEF and difference the series. All of the approach is same, and identify the which one is better. And of course, this is a very tedious task. So that's the place. What I have done is I created a one user-defined function that will perform all possible combinations of PDQs with the small PDQ and capital PDQ, and it will run the model. It will give you the best model out of it. What is the logic? The logic is nothing. The logic is you build the model and look at the AIC value. Whichever model is gives you minimum AIC, that will be chosen. So that is the next step which I was doing here.
No. In case we can find that cycle repeating.
If the series is this one is not repeating, then it's a simple ARIMA model. That's what I told you. In this case, it's the seasonal ARIMA you need to apply because the pattern is repeating every 12 months. The past trend is doesn't mean, I mean, the past trend in the time series, not the ACF. For a series, should not have the ACF values which will be again increasing, decreasing. It should somewhere it should be close to zero. All the values after some period of time it should be close to zero, and that is the kind of series. Then it will be, you can say that it's a non-seasonal and a stationary series. If it is seasonal stationary series, you need to apply SARIMA. There is no rule. So generally, the lag generally we look at is the first 4 or 5 itself you will able to identify, or up to 12 max, because in this case the data is monthly data, and after that it is repeating seasonality, and ideally my maximum P and Q values is maximum is 12. Okay, so this is the ARIMA, the first thing. Now if I want to build the ARIMA model, let's quickly do that. And what is my variable, my data in this case is my 2 is my final model. You got it right? Am I correct or not? Yes or no? So what is your model? You got it from the technique. What is the finally we concluded? Finally we conclude is if I take a TS log, my series is my PDQ values is 1 to 1. If I apply simple ARIMA model, not the seasonal ARIMA. If I do this one, I mean in the TSA module itself, ARIMA model you have it. In that ARIMA function you have it. You can directly use that ARIMA function and provide your series and provide your PDQ values. Then fit the model and take that summary of that results. Let me show you that. So this is the model which you're doing. Let me check what is. Okay, so guys, I think the ARIMA is a little older function. There was some invertibility issues, etc. So you have a generalized function which is available under the time series analysis and the state space model. Under that, the SARIMAX is the function we have it. The SARIMAX is used for all purpose. Let me show you that. The SARIMAX is a generalized function which can be used for AR model, MA model, ARMA model, ARIMA model, SARIMA model, and ARIMAX, SARIMAX. So all these models can be supplied over here. So this is the place, PDQ. So that's how it's a capital PDQ. If you don't specify anything about total capital PDQ, that is nothing but ARIMA model you are referring to. And if you're referring PDQ, suppose 1 0 0. So what is this tells me? AR with one term. The P equal to 1, right? So P equal to 1 means in the AR you will have only one term. And MA is nothing but the P value will be there. The D and Q is P and D is 0 and Q is maybe something, some value. So it's nothing but 0 0 2. Suppose it's a MA2 model. This is MA2 model. This is AR1 model. What is that AR1? AR with one term and MA with two terms. And ARMA in this nothing but D equal to 0. Suppose 2 comma 0 comma 1. What is this tells me? 2 AR terms and 1 MA term. And ARIMA means all the values will be there. And SARIMA means ARIMA with this one 1 2 1 for example, and then you have to supply PDQ values also, some 1 comma 0 comma 1. ARIMAX is ARIMA plus X variables, and SARIMAX is SARIMA plus X variables. So these X variables we also call it as exogenous variables. X variables we called as a exogenous variables. This is a name for this X variables we call it as independent variables, exogenous variables, features. There are different names basically. You remember in the very first class I was explaining that. So exogenous variables. So SARIMAX, if I want to build the ARIMA model, how will you do that? SARIMAX is the function. Specify your variable series, and then you can specify the order. The order is 2 1. If I want to specify capital PDQ, you need to specify seasonal order. If it is a normal order, this is nothing but a small PDQ. So that is what exactly we are doing. TS log, and just if I specify a simple order, this is my model of ARIMA model with the P equal to 1, D equal to 2, Q equal to 1. So once I build the model, what I need to do? I need to, I can directly use, these things basically. Model.fit, you remember how to build the model and print the summary of the results. So this is the results looks like this. Once you build the forecasting, and this is the results looks like. In this results, what is your AIC value? You remember I was referring that AIC. The AIC is what? Minus 228.195, and you use Sarimax, and you remember the beta for AR term. This is my beta. You remember what is the AR model? Beta 1 times of yt minus 1 plus g1 times of et minus 1. So the et minus 1 coefficient is this one, MAL1, and the AR term coefficient is this one. Are you able to follow me? This is what exactly we got it. And now if you want to forecast this one, okay, this is the model equation, you got it. And this is my model, suppose assuming that this is the model, you got it. And what is your forecast accuracy? I mean, forecasting, how will you do that? Then we have a function called results dot forecast, and steps equal to 4. What does that mean? Next 4 months. Maybe if I give next 12 months. So what is this means? Forecast of 12 months. So let me show you that. And if I look at the forecast of 12 months, this is my forecast of 12 months. And you can see that, okay, 1960 you have the data, 1961 onwards you are forecasted. Correct? But these values are log values, you remember? But you need to convert back into exponential, right? Because log is nothing but what? So exponential. Now, yeah. So if you look at this one, this is my value for next 12 months. What is my passengers movement? Is it clear? AIC values, Akaiki information criteria, and BIC is a Bayesian information criteria. These are basically used for minimizing my log likelihood ratios. So which I told you, estimating the betas, we will use two methods. One is a minimizing sum of squares of error. The other method is minimizing likelihood value. I mean, minus likelihood value basically. So that is an optimization problem perspective, which we are trying to look at. So, but if you look at the approach, approach is very simple, right? What is the approach we followed? The approach is what? In this case, we first identify PDQ and just build the model, and that model, and you applied it, and you've seen the summary of the results, and then you just use the forecast as a method, and that forecast method you have option to how many months or how many quarters, how many periods you want to forecast it. Based on the results, you can't do anything, right? Suppose if you want to do the PDQ, so for example, in this case, what is my value? Minus 228. So now, what is my, suppose if I change, for example, 111. So for example, some reason. And now what is your PDQ values? You got it. Sorry, what is my AIC value? You got it. Earlier was how much? Minus 228. And this is minus 242. So which one is better? 111 is better. So the reason I was saying that because of the seasonality part, which we did not take, so probably you are seeing this kind of pattern. But as I said that, you can now try all the combinations which is closer to these values, because you remember all these PDQ values, what we suggested, those are approximate values. Whatever we got, it is approximate values. And now what we need to find out, the best values out of this. So that is the place you require to iterate the process with the